Okay, away we go on our last video, and this one's going to be short, I promise. Chapter 10, as you can see here on the slide, for us is going to be about 3 pages long. Most of Chapter 10 is going to be discussions of specific muscles in lab, naming where deltoids and biceps and adductor longus muscles and things like that are. So here's just going to be a few basic concepts about muscles in general. So most of the chapter is going to be covered in lab. I want to give you this terminology. It's going to be more important that you know this, especially if you get into further discussions of kinesiology or physical therapy, but you'll still see these terms in some places depending upon the field of nursing you go into. The term agonist. Agonist means the prime mover, the prime muscle, the one that's most responsible for that movement. We're talking about flexion of, as your forearm comes to your upper arm. We're talking about the flexion of that movement. The biceps brachii, of course, is the agonist. It's the one that's most responsible for that movement. The antagonist, if you remember your terms from literature, is the one who opposed the main character or the hero. The antagonist is working in opposition to or in resistance to the agonist. So in that case, the triceps brachii is going to be the antagonist to the agonist. Now, in literature, the antagonist is always bad. In this case, though, the antagonist actually provides some resistance against that movement, so your arm doesn't just completely flop over. It does give it some natural pull and resistance so that when you're trying to have a very careful contraction, you don't, again, have an uncontrolled contraction. When I extend my arm, then the triceps brachii is the agonist, and the biceps brachii is the antagonist. Two other terms you'll see sometimes, synergist and fixator. A synergist is a muscle that adds some force or helps stabilize the joint, like your brachioradialis in your upper arm is going to provide some assistance with, and that's what a synergist is, to provide some assistance to the agonist. And it helps stabilize the joint so that you don't have a weird motion. It's going to give you a nice smooth motion. A fixator is a particular kind of synergist that helps stabilize the bone and allows it to move against a more stable resistance point. So if you think about your lower arm and your elbow, you're going to have fixators, muscles that basically assist the movement, but their assisting is more to kind of hold the other bone in place and to provide a natural fulcrum, a natural resistance point. So be familiar with the terms prime mover, antagonist, synergist, and fixator. Something that people struggle with a lot in lab is naming skeletal muscles. And I want to give you this slide more just as a reference slide for you. Why are muscles named the way they are? They're named because of location and shape and size. And you can read through these if you want to pause the video. But once you learn why a muscle is named what it is, it's supposed to help give you a little better way of remembering it. So spend some time if you see a muscle like the deltoid, knowing that means triangle, and you see the muscle up here and you see the triangular shape. Hopefully it helps jog your memory. That said, let me give you some advice on muscle identification. This is just purely my advice. It may be of no value to you whatsoever, but some things that might be helpful. One, find a distinctive landmark. As I mentioned in class, whenever I see the leg muscles, I always see the sartorius. That muscle sticks out to me. And whenever I find that muscle, it's easy for me to work around one direction or the other. If I said, hey, why don't you come over to my house and I'll give you some landmarks, if I give you a distinctive place that you can remember, you may be able to get your way once you know the distinctive place. So try to find some landmark muscles that help jog your memory. Look at the muscles as you learn them. I've seen people in lab try to learn like all the arm muscles and then all the leg muscles. And by doing that, you really don't know them. Take some time and do 2 or 3 at a time rather than try to learn all of them in a short period of time, and you find you'll learn them better. Focus on the names. Some names are very distinctive. If you see a term like infraspinatus, and if you know, infra means below, spinatus, spine. If you see a term like longus or maximus, those terms tell you things. So pay attention to the names. Don't just learn it and then not really think about what the name means. Palpate yourself. Why that sounds dirty, it isn't. But as you are learning muscles, you talk about biceps brachii, actually do that. Feel that muscle shorten. Triceps brachii, feel that muscle shorten. That will help you, again, get sort of a mental picture of what's happening to that muscle, and it might help you remember it a little bit better. Focus on one region at a time. Don't try to learn all the muscles the night before the practical. And you may find it helpful to learn for a few muscles the insertion and origin. We discussed those terms before. You may find it helpful, for example, to remember that all the hamstrings have an origin on a particular bone. And if you do that, then that will help maybe when you look at them and you see those muscles, you're like, oh, well, this is part of the hamstring because I see these muscles attached to this bone. And just about finally, there's going to be some terms that we're not going to spend a lot of time on. If you see these terms like convergent and circular and multipinnate, these are going to be terms that you may run into that describe the organization of the fascicles. Remember, the fascicles are those blocks of muscle fibers. And as you see there, they run in lots of different shapes depending upon that muscle's job and how it's going to contract. I'm not going to ask you to know these terms, but I do want you to understand that their arrangement is varying based upon how the fascicles arrange. This chapter also covers lever systems, levers 1, 2, and 3. We're not going to worry about that. If you take physical therapy classes, you'll learn levers a lot more than you want to. Okay, so in lab, you're going to learn specific muscles. Wait, not those muscles. These muscles, thank you. You're going to focus on these, and you're going to focus, again, mainly on the superficial muscles, roughly 80 of them. Again, take the time, focus region by region, look back at my advice and how to remember them, and you'll be okay. That does it. Thanks.